If you had to go back and tell yourself one thing today, maybe speak to the women listening who are sitting with that fear, what would you say to them?
People romanticize it. It's not that romantic. Many people left their corporate jobs and regret it.
It feels like you have to make this dramatic leap.
Why you have to make a dramatic leap to follow your dreams? You just build the structure and start investing in yourself.
All right, balancers, welcome to another episode of The Balance Theory. I'm so excited for today's conversation because this woman has such a beautiful energy. She's created such an interesting combination in her life, and her story and her origin, I think a lot of people can relate to where she's come from and I guess the way she's operating today. So we'll just get straight into it because there's a lot of questions I have for her. Saina, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Erika. So happy I'm here today.
Me too. I'm so grateful that our paths crossed. I really am inspired by the way you are kind of running your life and all the things you're doing. So I think where's really interesting to start is to give the listeners a bit of context, but I have a starting question for you. So today you are the VP of Siemens, which is no small role. You're a twin mum and you have your own fashion label. When you were growing up, which of those three did you think you would become?
It recently started to all make sense. So I start with my recent realization. I did a test with a Cambridge professor called Meet Yourself. And the results were so interesting that we had a call together. Normally it's not something he does. And I was like, your genes are extremely creative and people-oriented. Your genes are not making you be strategic or like a decision-making person or an engineering mind, but your brain is fully coherent. So if you look at the map, it's 25% on all ends.
So this test was looking at your DNA or your
DNA,
brain?
So you give them a swab. They analyze your DNA based on the neural pathways that they've discovered that make a gene creative or make a person a people's person.
Interesting.
And then they send you two sets of questionnaires. You finish the test and then you meet yourself. So being born extremely creative, people's person, but I was born into a family of doctors. So the normal path would be a doctor, and like if you really want to, you can be an engineer as well. That came with a map. That came with a career that would take you for the rest of your life. And given the family and going through revolution and all the uncertainties, certainty always played a key role. That there could be a revolution and you can lose everything overnight. You know, you need to acquire skill sets that can take you from a country to country, from disaster to the next unknown thing that comes. So creativity was not welcome. And I was told from a very young age, oh, and like in our family, we're not very musical. Oh, you're not very artistic. But it was always in me. I would take joy, but just like going through my grandma's bordas and even taking out patterns, being amazed how like mathematics, engineering, and shapes work together with fashion. I would picture myself in clothes that I would see on the movie Gone with the Wind, you know, like the big puffy skirts. Fashion was always a big part of me. And I was very poetic as well. I loved literature. I loved history. And at one point I would say, I want to be a historian. I want to be an archaeologist. But the given path to me was study maths, engineering, MBA, get into corporate, perform, and be successful.
So growing up, how did you make sense of that part of yourself? Did you kind of keep it alive in your own private time, or did you really push it to the side and just get on with the path that was giving you certainty?
It just came to me for the first time after many years that I would daydream. So I would lie in bed before sleeping and I would picture myself in a complete different life. I was an actress, I was a singer, and I would really live that life for many years of my, I would say from 6, 7 to 14, 15, 16, I was living a life before I go to sleep. And that life was very romantic in a sense of like living in a different era. It was me being the superstar in a movie, me being a person that I was not. So that's how it stayed alive in me. And then I would say came programs like the Next Fashion Model, Project Runway, and like me looking at that, and Heidi Klum and Tyra Banks and smizing, and I would do the catwalks with whatever I had at home handy for me as well. But But it died off at one point. I would say life became too serious. Engineering went into a very corporate German life. Fashion was still part of it. I would wear my suits with a pair of Louboutins. I would rock up to sites, and that's one of the very only pictures or rare pictures that I posted on my social media ages ago, me destroying my Louboutins at a site here that I was supposed to wear safety shoes, but they didn't have my size. It would start from 39 and I'm wearing 36. But slowly, it found its way back into my life.
So fill that gap before we kind of jump into you starting the business and creativity coming back in. So you go to engineering school, you become an engineer. What were those couple first years like for you?
I was a very serious mechanical engineer that got into compressor, steam turbine, oil and gas business at Siemens Energy.
Sounds exciting.
I loved it. I would go from site to site. Oftentimes they would think I'm the translator with the German group. I'm the team assistant taking notes. And they would be pleasantly surprised to see that I'm there with vast technical knowledge. I was responsible for engineered solutions for a big chunk of my career with Siemens Energy as well. But I had to flex my style. It was me, but it was not me. I was the girl with the hair tie and like looking very serious. And the few times that I tried to bring a bit of me into work, I was called Tussi-Tante, which in German is a girl that's like very shishy-poofy and does not have much of a brain. And I was like, okay, so to be successful and to be taken seriously, I have to flex my style. And a few mentors we had back then were German, serious, oftentimes no kids, very career driven. It's all about the business trips and like the rooms they walk into. So I looked up to them. I'm like, okay, if you want to play the corporate game, you need to flex your style to be masculine. And masculine competes and masculine performs and masculine pushes and masculine brings results. I was extremely successful. By age of 30, I was one of the youngest directors. I had my own big team that came from 3 different mergers. I was genuinely the youngest in the room for as long as I remember. So all of that brought me focus, brought me results. But then something shifted in me. Before kids or before any of it, I went through not a very good relationship. And I think that woke me up to why I'm not happy, why I don't love myself fully, what's wrong with me. Because I'm successful, but there is this void in me. And at the beginning, that void was many, many things that I had to go through therapy to understand who to forgive, who to ask for forgiveness for. What are the unfinished jobs of my parents that I'm trying to finish and complete? What are the hidden commitments that got into my brain from those commitments? And I went through like extensive workshops to just write down the story of my life, understand what was my responsibility, where I was victim, where I lost my sense of belonging, where I cannot communicate, where I'm not in touch with myself. So I would say slowly, that's where my journey of becoming started, and like it was healing. So one slap woke me up to ask myself, why did I let it happen to me? Why didn't I love myself or respect myself fully? And from there, in parallel, my career started shifting as well. I was still very successful, but I was not masculine. I was not competing. I was not performing. And I remember the teacher who I owe a lot to her, in one of our sessions told me, look, Saina, women have one egg. Men have millions of sperms. And at the end of the day, it's masculine and feminine. Feminine sits there, receives. Masculine competes. For masculine competition is life or death. So the reason you have a lot of relationship conflicts is because you're accomplished, you're masculine, you're this overachiever, controlling person, and all of it is a lot of masculine energy. And I understand you had to be like this or whatever you've been through life, but it's very attractive for men and it's very attractive for colleagues and everyone to look at this. But then when they want to get close, when you get into a relationship, it doesn't work. Or when you run a big team and you want to grow them, you want to live up to the standards of a leader. not a manager. It doesn't work if you want to just drive with your masculine.
Okay, I have to admit something. I stopped going to the GP many years ago, and nothing against GPs. I just honestly felt like every time I went when I felt like something was off, they would just tell me I was fine because on paper I was young, everything kind of was within the general normal ranges, and there was no real action plan or intention to investigate anything further. And because that was the experience I had, I decided to start proactively getting my own blood tests. But the problem with that, I have no idea about you, but I have no idea how to read a blood test. And I'm not about to go and put in all my results into ChatGPT and divulge all my health information, which is why I'm so interested in what a brand called Superpower are doing in the market right now. So basically, they take one simple blood draw that gives you information on over 100 of your blood biomarkers. This level of testing gives you a much more detailed understanding of your body across 17 different systems, from heart to thyroid, metabolism, inflammation, and this one I've never seen or heard of as something you can even test for, and that's environmental toxins. When you have this kind of oversight and detail of information on your body and your health, you can not only deal with the things that you know are bothering you, like I did, my fatigue, my brain fog, but you can actually be extremely proactive with your health, not just reactive. Superpower makes this process so easy. They either send a licensed professional to your house, or you can visit one of their labs in selected states. Other features I really love is the fact that it integrates all of your medical history and data in one place. It even looks at your family history. So the protocols and the supplements and whatever plan it ends up recommending you is extremely personalized when you consider the full picture. You can also get your biological age, and the results are properly explained to you. Superpower is the most affordable 100 plus blood biomarker test, and it is HSA FSA eligible for all our US-based listeners. For a limited time, our listeners get $20 off to unlock their new health intelligence. Head over to superpower.com and use the code BALANCE for $20 off your $199 membership. After you sign up, they're going to ask about where you heard about them. Please support the show and let them know that the Balance Theory sent you their way. Now, just before we get back into the episode, I want to ask you something, because I already know you've got enough on your plate. Trying to keep up with your health, your family, the things you're working on, being an amazing partner, being an amazing friend. Who's making sure that you're supported? Who's looking out for you in ways that you don't even need to think twice about? Well, I'll tell you who is for me. That is my Honeylove bra. It's that kind of support you don't even have to think about. It's always there, keeping you put together and feeling supported no matter what kind of day you're having. I currently can't live without the wireless crossover bra design. It's no wonder it's one of their best sellers, because it has built-in molded light foam pads for extra support and beautifully contoured shape. Oh, and before I forget to mention, all their bras are wire-free thanks to bonding tech that lifts without an underwire, which is great news for me because I can say bye-bye to all my PTSD from wired bras from when I was growing up, which completely turned me off bras in general. If you want to treat yourself to the most advanced bras and shapewear on the market, you can use our exclusive link to save 20% off Honeylove by heading to honeylove.com/balance. That's honeylove.com/balance. After checkout, they're going to ask where you heard about them. Please support the show and let them know that we sent you. Experience a new standard in comfort with Honeylove. Thank you so much to Honeylove for sponsoring today's show. Now let's get back into today's episode. There's a lot of bits you've shared there that I want to pick up on. Take me back to that moment, right, where you realized there was a void. And obviously you spent extensive time filling the gaps and really understanding yourself. You said something that's interesting that reminded me of a recent conversation I had, which is what was I carrying that was my parents? Like, it's almost like a pattern or a cycle that you're given that you have to break, that you don't realize you're unconsciously repeating or, just taking on that was never yours to take. I had this conversation with, I don't know if you know Dr. Shafali. She's
huge fan.
And she workshopped some amazing things with me that really made me think of this. So I want to ask you, what was something you realized during that time that you were carrying that wasn't yours?
The judging myself fully. And that comes from you're born into a family, and no matter how good they are, there are moments that you feel less of yourself. And in your mind, you say that there's parents, but I might not be good enough to get the love. Perfectionism. I had to be perfect to be loved. My grandma would walk into the room, lift and open the window. Why the bedsheet is not perfect? Why your hair is not perfect? Why your score is 19.95 but not 20? Why you passed the university exam but your picture is not on the first 10? So the perfectionism came from that. Not having the unconditional love. Again, no blame, nothing. It's pure love, but it's the understanding that the judgment comes to you. And even if you grew up in the most it's like if Dr. Shafali would have raised me, you still go to school.
Sure.
And then you see your other friends and you say, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not as pretty as them. It just takes one moment. And then your ego kicks in. Oh, well, if I'm not good enough, they're not good enough as well. So you keep judging other people and you keep judging yourself. And it's a neural pathway and it stays there. And that's how you see the world. I was controlling. I was put in charge from a very young age. My parents were both dentists. My mom was working and I had a younger brother. So I would cook at times. Now that I look back, I'm like, how did you leave us alone, like at the age of 5 and 7 at home, like all day during summer? But I was put in charge at a very young age for many things. And our family has a history of drama, again, with revolution, with what happened from the past. So I had to be very emotionally alert the whole time, read the room. Did we hear bad news? Did something happen? And again, being stuck in a country at one point of time, my mom always had this urge to like travel, to get out. And that made me very restless. And they're all brain saboteurs that come to you because of your programming. And maybe between age of 0 to 6, maybe a bit longer. But it's like putting a cast at that very long age. And then you grow up and it hurts. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? But this cast was made for a 2-year-old. But you're carrying it at the age of 30 and 40, and it needs to be removed.
Wow, that's really powerful when you really, zoom out and think about how many of us are carrying those things. And, again, there's no judging. I think everyone does the best they can with the information they have at the time. And I can definitely relate to a lot of those themes in my upbringing as well. Like, I got 9 out of 10 on my score and my mum was saying, great, well, what can you do better next time? And it was me always looking for what's the gap, what's the deficit, how can I be better? It's still something I'm unraveling today. But in the same vein, I think it creates a certain internal standard that we hold for ourselves that keeps us driven and pushing forward. But then when it comes to being in a relationship, I think this is my experience anyway, and you're now, married, you have a partner. I would love to hear for you, how did that understanding, right, of this is how I'm showing up in work, this is the type of masculine energy I'm commanding every day. It's come from my childhood. I've now brought this into my adulthood. I can see how this is the way it is. What changed for you to be able to then be in a relationship and let someone else hold that space for you so you could be more feminine?
I had to heal and I had to understand that my perfectionism has a sage. And the sage got me to a person I'm today. If I didn't have it in me to perform, to excel and do all of that, I wouldn't have pushed myself to become. So it was first understanding the sages and recognizing the saboteurs in your partner as well. And see, at the end of the day, these are all brain neurocircuits. Nothing is personal. Have a huge understanding. Well, with my relationship with my husband and kids wouldn't have been successful if Siemens Energy, back then Siemens Energy, didn't put me in a stretch zone to get to know about myself more. So a lot of self-realization didn't come from the therapy sessions because I was slapped from a past relationship. It came when I was building a team and I was fully responsible to turn around a business that was not performing into a successful business. And gosh, worse than the worst relationship, that makes you face your own demons. You're the perfectionist. You're used to be the star of the show. I'm the girl that delivered this and that. And now you're sitting in a room with your peers and your numbers, bottom line, top line, are the worst. Engagement survey results, the worst. And suddenly I'm not the best person in the world. So you face with your perfectionism. You try to control. Now it's a light P&L. I have a thin partner. I'm not in charge of everything. So the more I grew and I let go of the saboteurs I had, also thanks to a training called Positive Intelligence. So I started doing a lot of the PQ reps to just break these neural circuits that I had in my brain.
What does that look like?
It's mindfulness, but not in a sense of I'm sitting at work and I'm meditating while I'm talking to you. But to catch yourself that this is my controlling. This person is speaking and I'm not letting them finish because I've already made the prejudgment. So you catch yourself and you immediately try to break that neural pathway. I stole one of the techniques from Deepak Chopra, and he says when you're speaking to someone and you catch yourself ruminating or trying to respond them next, focus on the space between you and them. It's a blank space, and immediately your brain breaks the circle.
I like that.
So you become in the moment. Oftentimes when we have difficult conversations at work, I start playing with my ring, and my team now knows me for long. I'm like, oh, Hossein is fully present. You need to break the circuit, because we go into this, call it autopilot, call it system one, call it prefrontal cortex. And the second you break it and be in the moment, then you can really listen and you realize, look, it was my brain on the autopilot mode with my judgment, with my perfectionism, with all the saboteurs I have that was stopping me from truly listening.
So today, if we just fast forward quickly, so what I love about what you shared is we often look at these things, right? Like, okay, this has happened, this is the way I am, and it can have quite a negative spin. But I like that you've sort of shared that, no, it was actually because of that I got to this point that then allowed me to have these realizations. So today, what role does your perfectionism play?
It makes me see things that other people don't see. Yesterday, we received a video from an amazing influencer filming herself. I'm like, everybody's looking, look at that body, look at the clothes. I'm like, she used the front camera, the logo is the other way around. So that eye in fashion is really needed, particularly if you want to be in the luxury world. The attention to details, that's what differentiates mass from luxury. So I'm using the sage, but I don't pay the price with my happiness. It doesn't rob my joy and appreciation for the moment. And I just use it to my benefit because I can catch it immediately.
Beautiful. I remember being like 10 years old and begging my mum and dad for like $10 so I could go to the movies with my friends on the weekend and I could upgrade and get the popcorn package. I feel like I had a really different understanding of money growing up because it was this physical, tangible thing that I could touch and feel, and I had to ask for it. And this really got me thinking about how our kids are growing up in a digital world so removed from this, where their access and understanding of money looks so different today. So I was really thinking about how do we give our kids a proper understanding right from the beginning and educate them on the value and use of money. Cash App's managed account for kids aged 6 to 12 are designed exactly for this. The account runs completely through you as the parent, so you're not just handing over cash and watching from the sidelines. You're actually in it with them. And this is the part that I love most. It's an extremely collaborative experience where every time money comes in or out, it's an opportunity to have a conversation and learn something new together, which makes it not just another account. It makes it a real teaching tool. You set the spending limits and you can lock or unlock the Cash App Visa bank card from your app at any time. The kids can get real life practice with things like savings and earning interest, which is really exciting. And the idea is that the setup and the habits grow with them. From a parent managed account at 6 to a teen account at 13 to a full account at 18. The best part is there are no subscription fees, which I love because building strong money habits should not cost your family extra. And for a limited time, new Cash App customers who are parents can use our exclusive code FAMILY10 to earn $10. Just download the Cash App, enter the referral code into your profile, send $5 to a friend or family member within the first 14 days, and you'll receive $10. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services are provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards are issued by Sudden Bank, member FDIC. Cash App Visa Debit Flex cards are issued by Sudden Bank, member FDIC, and the Bancorp Bank N.A. pursuant to a license from Visa USA Inc. See terms and conditions for the Sudden Prepaid Card, Sudden Debit Flex Card, and Bancorp Debit Flex Card. Savings and offers are provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Parents and legal guardians can open a managed account for kids aged 6 to 12. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. Thank you so much, Cash App, for being a sponsor of today's episode. Now let's get back into the show. So I think the question that's probably sitting in everyone's mind, given you're still working at Siemens, you're still in corporate, I think what's interesting about your story, I think a lot of people when they're sharing the context of how they started their business, it's often in their garage, it's often VCs funded their idea and they got them going, but you actually started it in tandem while being in your job. And why I think this is interesting, it's a place I come from as well. I started my podcast while I had my corporate job. I believe, because I was sitting in this space too, there are a lot of people that would be listening that feel like because they're in a job, that is a limitation, right, for them to get started. They can't start because they don't have the time or because their job's the priority. So what I think is really interesting is for us to understand, how did you actually start Elias Sarai, which is your fashion label? How did you start that while you were working at Siemens? What was the moment you decided, and what did that process look like?
it was a continuation of my healing journey. And they say artists are the ultimate healed ones, or the opposite. But for me, I think I healed myself. I got pregnant, I got married, I had a great work. And I would sit with myself and there was still something missing. And every healing modality I would do, someone would say, oh, there is something in your sacral. Not to be ungrateful, but one day I woke up after a treatment. I did this Maya and Cosmovision in Tulum, and I woke up at 3 a.m. I looked out, it was this beautiful moonlight, sea was shining. I'm like, every day you have to wake up with gratefulness. Look how grateful I am. It's not ungrateful not to be happy. So I sat there and was like, what's the information? And I called a mentor, and lucky it was I could catch her immediately on phone. I'm like, there is something moving in me, and I don't feel okay. And she was like, Sayana, you need to create. That's the feminine in you. The feminine is coming out. I was like, where do I start? I'm like, what's your purpose? Like to present my culture, my heritage, my region in a contemporary way. Look, Italians have panettone, they beautifully package it. We have this amazing carpets. We still don't treat it as precious as any other nation would do. So it's like, it's a beautiful purpose. Where do you start? I'm like, I always, like, I'm a foodie and I was obsessed with the sweets. Look how beautifully Italians or French package their goodies. I want to do gluten-free Persian sweets in a nice package. She was like, there you go. And just to get it moving. So that turned into designing a package with an amazing illustrator. And then from that, designing the plates. And from that, like, home, one thing led to the other. I didn't push. I didn't search for it. It just came to me. And even the start of fashion brand came around a conversation at a dinner table. And like, sometimes I look back, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I seriously started something. But because it was aligned with purpose, it happened. It took a lot of creative juice, but that powered me and fueled me to do more for all other areas of my life. Now I'm taking the leap. People romanticize it. It's not that romantic. The ones that made it romanticize it, but many people left their corporate jobs and regret it. Everyone has different reasons. I have friends who did it and they lost their safety net and security. Having a passion, but having your core job or what you trained for can bring structure. And that was the case for me. I know when I drop my kids off at school, when I have my 9 to 5, but that doesn't take away from 2 5 to 9s that I have in the morning and at night. I spend time with my kids. I do my Siemens job. I walk to get my coffee. I listen to the WhatsApps that I might have from the content team or creative team. I come spend time with my kids, put them to bed, take calls on Eli Sarai. The day is so long, and it's very important people listen to founders. And one of the things that really gave me the tools to do so is podcasts. Your podcast and other podcasts. I remember listening to Alex Hormozy, and I borrowed the 2 5 to 9s from him. Like, why you have to make a dramatic leap to follow your dreams. You just build the structure and start investing in yourself. And then it comes to you.
I definitely love this approach, because even for me, and it's so, you're right, like people do romanticize. And I remember always thinking, like, it's so unknown, right? Like, I know what being in a law firm, I know what that trajectory looks like. Doing something like, for me, it was this podcast, right? Like, I have no idea what the levels to this are, especially 6 years ago. It was very, it wasn't as well known. And even if you're tapping into an industry that's well known, there's so much learning along the way. You really don't know the path. It's so scary. And I think that's why people just don't even try or don't give themselves the permission to start exploring, because it feels like you have to make this dramatic leap. And it's not so much even the time, right? The job gives you that financial safety net, because most of the time, I don't know what your experience was like, but it takes a long time for you to actually be profitable to a point where you can, you know, walk away from your job and have the same kind of safety and stability, which often business can't give you that continuity at the beginning like a job does. So 2 things for people listening to really think about if they are sitting in a job and they've been telling themselves a story that it's not the right time or it's because of their job they can't. I actually want to reframe that for you. It's because of your job that you can, because it gives you that structure. And I love the 2 5 to 9s, because that is the time that you can allocate. For me, it was the same. On the way to work, on the way home from work, that's when I would do the things. And it gives you that financial buffer. Oftentimes, the capital you need to invest in what you're doing as well. So I think that's really, really powerful. One thing I wanted to ask you, you said obviously there was a lot of creativity that came to you. This is actually something I'm struggling with at the moment, because I'm finding I'm consuming a lot more than I'm creating, and that often takes away that innate idea, right? Like I'm in this kind of scarcity place where I feel like if I have an idea, I need to run with it, because I don't know when the next one's going to come, because I don't have a lot of mental space right now. I'm adjusting to like being a mum and working again and all of that. But for you in that time, what do you think were the necessary ingredients for you to have creativity flowing?
Stillness.
What does that look like?
When you sit with yourself and in a flow state. For me, the flow state came from, when your mind is constantly running, you can make time. You have time, but you're in your head. But if you regulate yourself and if you balance yourself, I call it the brain-heart coherence. You can get there with breath work. And the busier I became, the more I started doing grounding, brain-heart coherence exercises. Sauna cold plunge. While I'm sitting in sauna cold plunge, I'm doing my breath work exercises. When I'm regulated, your brain is out of your prefrontal cortex. You're already in that flow state. And in the flow state, you can tap into the source that's within you. And that's when the creativity comes and flows. I made it a very sacred time when I'm on the airplane. It's 6-7 hours. I'm going on a business trip. I do my Joe Dispenza meditation. I do my Alchemy Rewire breath work. I picture and imagine whatever I want to achieve already happened. I'm like, this is the vision. I'm here today. What's stopping me from getting there? And then my left side come in picture. So what are the roadblocks to get there? Because by tapping into my creativity, I created that vision. This is the next collection for Elisa Wright. This is the next revenue target that I have for Siemens Energy. And again, it looks like numbers, but it takes a leader that dreams to make that vision happen as well. They're both the same thing at the end of the day. But unless you don't create the space in your body, I don't want to say in your time, because sometimes it takes 20 minutes of tapping inside and quieting the noise for everything to come to you.
Yeah, you've given me a bit of food for thought, because like I just went away on a holiday, and what you were saying before, like you can be grateful and still try and process what's the information. So I was away on a holiday for a week and a half. And I felt like, why do I feel like I'm not grateful right now? Because I'm so grateful. Like I'm away on a holiday with my best friends from Australia, with my family. Like I'm so grateful to be here, but just I had information, right? And I couldn't quite process it. But now that I've had time away, what I realized was I'm not really in a season where I want to be taking breaks from my life, if that makes sense. Yeah. I feel like sometimes holidays and traveling, like it is that break from what you're doing, but I'm in a period where I'm really invested in the things I'm growing, and it kind of just felt like it wasn't the right time to be offline, if that makes sense. And I feel like that's what that information was telling me. So it's interesting, right? Like you need to really create that time and space. And I think now more than ever, where we live in a world where, I remember somebody shared this on the podcast once, the amount of information we receive in a day is more than our ancestors would have received in a lifetime. We're bombarded. We're completely overloaded. And so you have to be very intentional about creating that time and that groundedness for yourself. And again, I think that's also tapping into our feminine energy, because what we do, the way we perform, the way we push, it's masculine energy. Not to say it's masculine to do that and it's not reserved for the masculine. I think as people in general, right, we have a combination of both energies, but really learning how to harness that feminine energy is really important, I think, for what we're talking about here, which is creating space and creativity. So I want to ask you, you now hold space for two very different energies, I would say. I've heard you speak about this before, how you've actually seen how the two really complement each other. Engineering, to me, from the outside and corporate feels very masculine, and fashion and creating feels very feminine. How do you reconcile those two parts of yourself, and how have they actually fed each other?
I don't call it two parts of me. I call it like me being in two different rooms. And the more I carry more of me in both rooms, the more coherent my life becomes. I used to be following, again, the corporate rule of competition, which I let go of 10 years ago. But there's still some unwritten corporate rules. You can't make bold decisions on your own. You need to bring all the stakeholders in one room. You need to send 24 hours notice and a pre-read for the agenda of this big idea I want to discuss with you. I scrapped that after Eli Sarai. I'm like, guys, this is my vision. And I'm truly blessed that we went into a corporate restructuring that put 6 leadership essentials out them. And one of it is leaders are future makers. Leaders make bold decisions. They decisively move forward, leaders collaborate, leaders grow other people. How can you do that if you purely want to drive it with your left side of brain? Left side of brain is amazing for, hey, Mr. Customer, this is a solution you're getting from Siemens. This is your inlet. This is your outlet. This is your efficiency and all. But when you want to shape a future, now we are at a crossroad of energy transition. Data centers are coming in. Data centers need power. How the future would look like. How can you shape the future and lead with heart and purpose if you're purely driven by your left side? And the more I let the creativity flow and the founder in me come out, I realized my role in Siemens is evolving into something that's truly leading, not just managing people and their expectations. And a few of my team members used to call me Khaleesi, and she's like, oh, Sina, you have this Khaleesi energy now, like the mother of dragons, and everyone's calling your team Sina's team. Nobody calls it our team anymore. And what I took in Eli Sarai was structure, OKRs, KPIs, and everything that we use in Siemens world as well. That made me extremely effective. Like sometimes people come and say, you launched this in a year? Like, how did you do that? Like, girl, I have tableaus, I have Excel files, I breathe on everyone's neck, and I get it done in 1 hour because I'm effective. And when you're a mom and you're in the room being a mom, you're like, why am I wasting my time? So every minute is important. Why should, like, and I'm very vocal to the points that, like, in German, they call me a Nervenkitzel. I get on everyone's like, why we're in this meeting? And like, this could have been an email. You took 1 hour of my time. I declined business trips. I'm like, why do you need me there? What's the value added? What's the team charter? I ask for agendas. I don't like this agenda. You need to shape it in a way that we achieve something. And one key difference would be Siemens trained me for many years to be that corporate citizen, team delegate, and do all of that. In a fashion world, that's one skill set you can't take, because as a founder, you know what works deep inside. It's a creative thing. You don't need experts to tell you. And what I realized, the more I listened to myself in that world, the more I was successful.
Did you find at the beginning there was a lot of resistance from that corporate world? Because I think this concept of leading with heart is so beautiful. But, you know, what does that look like practically for someone sitting in a boardroom on a Tuesday afternoon when things are the way they are? This is the agenda, and you feel like it's not really effective or working. How do you actually bring that in without facing resistance? Like, did you feel that?
At the top level, our, like I would say, N-1 level, at the board level, our culture is so evolved. You look at them as people to look up to, evolved human beings, people who are not one-dimensional. One of our board members is a mom of 4. She looks like a Hollywood star. She's an opera singer, and it has changed. The corporate has changed. It's no more dry. It's no, like, you look at the board and everyone's bringing a different flavor into it. One of the deepest conversations I had in Siemens World was with a board member sharing the divorce, and like we were exchanging notes of how bad relationships make you evolve. And so at that level, not only it's accepted, it's like, you know, they push you to be like that. When you go in the in the lower levels of the organization, you need to lead by example. The resistance toward the vision was there. I've been laughed at and mocked by my own team members when I set the vision. And like, in 3 years, when we achieved it and we looked back, we can make it double. But what changed alongside was I evolved as a leader. My team evolved with me. We had an amazing coach that we worked with her on how we can communicate better. And I read a wonderful book gifted to me by a friend called Mastering Leadership. And it says, just like kids' education, when a kid is not eager to learn, there is nothing wrong with that kid. You need to understand all kids want to learn and discover new things. So is it health related? Are you feeding them enough? Is it behavior related? And same about the organization. Every organization wants to perform, evolve, and be a better version of themselves. So understand what the roadblocks are. We could not communicate well. We did not have the shared values. Make it their target, make it their values, grow together, and then you see the results better than any other team.
I love that. You said before, right, before you reached that moment where you were experiencing that void, you're talking about how you were very successful in your career up until that point. When you reflect back now at the way you were defining success, what do you think you were missing? If you had to then say today, were you successful back then? What would you reflect on and say, maybe you feel like you weren't, or would you still say the same?
I was called a Terminator by a peer because I would say you don't perform. I give you a chance for 3 months, but you don't fit in our team. So I was successful in terms of delivering the results in our own corporate terms. The what was amazing in terms of how did I grow my people, where they feel valued or I had this term used that, again, I was very kind and but firm, that we were scared of Saina. What if, she found out about this mistake? I was such a perfectionist that without asking them, they would look at me and they feel less of themselves. So success was there in terms of numbers. Did I build a family at the age of 30? I would say yes and no. It was shared around goals, but would I lead the same way today? Absolutely not. It would be all about people first, and then when the people are healed, the business would follow.
And, from what you've shared, a lot of the change in this has come from your own personal work. Did becoming a mum also make an impact on the way you showed up at work?
1000%. So one is I value my time more, I value other people more, as we discussed, but I'm way more caring. When people share their personal stories, I think the masculine, the competitive in me would see a lot of emotions as weakness. Now I cry with them. It's funny, I was just telling a colleague that I look at the compressors as my babies now as well. Oh, my babies at Aramco, oh, my babies at you, they're doing great. It's a level of care that woke up in me that was not there before.
And I'm curious, a lot of women specifically worry about, they want to have kids, but they worry about what it will do to their ambition and their career. What did becoming a mum do for your ambition?
That fear made me go through very difficult times with miscarriages and losing pregnancies. And the root of all of it was the fear of that. They're how can I go on the stage and talk about the modernization of the compressors with my belly out? We were in the middle of a project in Rovais, all the way down there. How am I going to drive 3-4 hours every day like this? And one day I woke up and the baby was not there. And it was a wake-up call. I was like, Saina, to the fear of losing your body, you were still training like crazy. You wake up, have a coffee, have a protein bar, go to work. The fears are in your body and it would reflect on your body as well. Having twins, I'm way more ambitious that I was before. I get more done because my time matters, my structure matters. I prioritize myself even more because I realized if I'm not a happy and healthy mom, I can't hold a space for my family as well. And I started working on all areas of my life, like myself, my kids, my work, my creativity, my community, with way more intention after having kids.
I can definitely relate to that, especially the piece on the value of your time. Because if I am going to sit on a meeting, if I am going to listen to an opportunity, it has to be aligned. Otherwise, I can be with my daughter or my husband. It's not worth it anymore. That really has given me I didn't see it as it was going to be a time management tool, but it's given me a filter almost of what's aligned and what's not, in a very aggressive way, which is something I'm very grateful for. And I didn't see, because I didn't hear a lot of people talking about it. So it was a bit of a surprise to me. if you don't mind, if we can just go into that moment where you were really stuck on that fear of what becoming a mum would mean for you. Obviously, there was some time between it, you know, you having some unfortunate experiences and then you falling pregnant successfully and having kids. What did that time gap involve? Like, what did you have to change in your day, in your thinking, in the way you were looking at yourself? You know, do you think it was something there that got you eventually to it happening?
Absolutely. I take every pain as a catalyst. I'm like, I'm not going to fall the victim of it. What is this pain teaching me? And I started going deep into my fears. And I remember reading it was something like Courage with Debbie Ford and making me face my own fears as well. And later I went to a workshop focused a lot on the fears as well. And that was a huge role that I had, like fear of judgment, fear of loss, fear of losing stability. I realized a lot of it was like, you are going into the unknown. What if I have kids and I lose my job and I'm not relevant enough and I don't know what's happening in the energy world? What happens if I miss out? So I had to really work with fears, but also fear of loss. I lost 3 friends in a car accident, and only after losing that pregnancy, it made me realize it's still so deep in me that I constantly afraid that I lose. And I had to really sit in a workshop in front of that fear and face it and talk to it and shout at it and scream at it, and then sit down, tap into my left side after everything is somatically released from my body and my soul, and say, okay, what if this happens? Okay, what next? What next? What next? And then you're like, it's gone. I don't give energy to the fear of loss anymore. But the more you think about those fears and worries, the more you're attracting this energy, and the more it's becoming the self-fulfilling prophecy, or the energy becomes aligned and the universe delivers it to you.
And from what you shared at the very beginning, it's almost like the pregnancy was this uncertainty, right? And you'd always been wired and programmed to look for certainty, and your career was that certainty, and this maybe was threatening to that. If you had to go back and tell yourself one thing today and maybe speak to the women listening who are sitting with that fear, what would you say to them?
Work on yourself before having kids or trying to even get pregnant, because the more I go within, the more I see how every single feeling is tapped and trapped in your body. Recently, I did a profound fascia work where he was working on my sacral, and I went back to my mom's womb.
Wow.
They say emotions get stored in the body. Like mechanically, it's not as easy as possible, but the neural pathways are there. Your body just doesn't know how to express them, and they're there. They're in your neurons. And with the fascia work, you get to the understanding of why it's there and why you're feeling the way you're feeling. We went back to the feelings I felt in my mom's womb, where like the second I came into world, and I even saw my dad's face. Like he had 2 girls from his previous marriage, and I came to world, and back then there was no sonogram, and like he saw me, and like all of it came. Like we never thought about it. I'm like, my daddy's girl loves me more than anything. We never spoke about this, but it was in my body, because the same way that the food gets through to the fetus, the same way emotions get into their body as well. The mom's brain changes when you become pregnant. It's way more complicated than where this field is connected. Healing, I would have, now in retrospect, it's way easier to say go heal and then have the kids. But even with the reading of the iris, a lot of them can tell if the trauma got transferred to the kids, the generational trauma is there, or the trauma from pregnancy. It stays in the kid's body. Work on yourself before you bring someone else into the world.